Hey there. Streams Live Podcast. Chris Anthony with you here on a somewhat gloomy day in Southern California in San Juan Capistrano. Live streaming to YouTube Live and Facebook Live along with Twitch and Twitter. I want to welcome you to the podcast. Going to be looking at an interesting concept today about how this current state of being that we're in has changed the perspective of work, and not from work from home. I'm going to talk about how the awakening, the ascension that is taking place right now is just changing everything. Thanks so much for joining. Again, I am Chris Anthony, and this is Streams of Light Podcast. Have you ever thought about the changes that are taking place right now in society? The last 2 years has been definitely a challenging time, but things have changed a lot. Perspectives, spiritual awakenings. A lot of people who really didn't care for spirituality or anything like that have really had to go back to the drawing board and start to look at things like not only exercise and diet, but the meaning of life and what does all this mean? So today I want to talk about something that I believe is clearly happening, but I have to ask you the question, do you believe that we're in the middle of a massive ascension? I know that sounds like a fairly new agey term, ascension, but really, in reality, we go through these times in history where big things happen and then big changes happen in society. And I really believe that we're going to look back at some point in time and say, wow, that was a massive awakening. That was a massive ascension. And one of the first things that I started to notice was more people in the last couple of years, more people getting outside. A lot of people went on some sort of stimulus support from the government in certain cases. And so a lot of people had time to get out. I surf a lot. And so I'd see a lot more guys out surfing. And, we always used to ask the question when we were surfing and it was crowded. We were like, does anyone work? But that got really bad, like about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So, but people started getting out in the sunshine because they knew that getting in the sunshine and exercising and eating right was definitely going to be a lot better for their own soul, their own body. And, working is the kind of thing where you kind of put your nose to the grindstone and you just keep going. And sometimes you just don't look back, right? I mean, that's the way work is. And a lot of people do that their whole freaking life. And then one day they wake up in their 50s or 60s or even 70s and they kind of like shake their head like, what was I doing? What was I thinking about? One thing I know you've all heard is that famous saying from Confucius, which is choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. That's a pretty awesome statement. Well, it's more than just that statement. The current process that we're going through it reminds me of when I was young. I was a heavy sleeper when I was young. And if I had to go to school, oftentimes if I stay up late or didn't sleep well, my mom had to come and wake me up like many of us, right? And since I was such a deep sleeper, she had to at times, she had to grab me by the shoulders and shake me, wake up. And I look at the current state of affairs in our society, almost like, when you look at the ascension that we're going through right now, this spiritual awakening, this higher level of consciousness, deeper thought about what life is about. What do I want to do for work? What's really important to me? If this was my last week, month, year, what would I wish I had done later? All these kind of things, all these reflections are a sign of awakening, ascension. And ascension to me is it's like mom shaking you in bed. Sometimes the more violent the shaking is, the better to wake us up. Not always fun. Like if you look at the last 2 years, definitely not the funnest time in life as far as health and all the things that happened in the last 2 years. But that aside, and it has affected me, I don't want to go into it because I don't talk about politics or health in that sense. But that being said, it's been a tough time, but we were awoken. We were shaken so hard that some of us thought, what was I thinking? Especially when it came to work. Because when people had some time to take off and work from home, the first thing they thought when they were working from home was, man, this is kind of cool. I spend, an hour and a half less commuting or whatever that number was. And that number can be pretty big for some people. And so, wow, I just gained 45 minutes a day or an hour a day or an hour and a half or even 2 hours a day plus. That's huge. So we clearly asked that question, like, what was I thinking? Once we are forced, right? We're forced to try a new way. And so this has been happening now with not only careers and work life, but it's just happening in our personal life as well. And in the work situation, I believe, if you look at what's happening in society, and I'm just going to take one point, and that's going to be cryptocurrency. I know that sounds like a strange angle here when we're talking about work, but if you look at cryptocurrency and you look at what we call the DeFi sector of cryptocurrency, that would be, DeFi stands for the decentralization of finance. So finance, for example, is run by the banks. If you want to buy a house or get a loan for your business, there are certain processes you go through with the banks, and the money that they have comes from a certain specified location. There's things that you pay like points and fees and so on and so forth. But cryptocurrency is changing the landscape of finance. That's what DeFi is all about. It's decentralizing the finance industry. So now, in the crypto world, you have the potential of not only getting loans from other places other than banks, but you actually have the option to be funding loans. Why do I mention all that? I mention all that because if that affects the banks, for example, in the United States and around the world, that means that a lot of fat is cut out, because the longer these programs exist, for example, if you buy a house, you know as well as I do, you hear this term called points. Well, how many points am I going to pay? Point, a point and a quarter, a point and a half. Okay. When you're buying that house, you go through the list, your escrow list and all this stuff, and you look at all the fees and you're like, what the heck is this? Origination fee, this, that. Guys, this is just a legacy of fat. This is a legacy of regulations and things that we just do. We have to do, because that's number one, that's the way it's always been done, but there's reasons why over the years we've added things on. So cryptocurrency is changing the face of finance and lending. And I believe, people are gonna have awakenings based on these technologies. And the awakenings are not gonna just be about, I don't have to go to a bank to get a loan. I could do it through Ether, for example, or one of these companies that works with Ether. People are gonna have awakenings about, why am I working in this job? Why no, I don't really need to do this, do I? I should do what I love. I don't even like this job. Why does my boss treat me like crap like that? Well, your boss knows that you're locked in. And there's a legacy in the workforce, just like there's been in other agencies, where this is just the way it works. And so this is changing. This awakening we're having right now is changing the landscape of what it means to work. We could follow the Confucius statement, choose something you like and you'll never work a day in your life. I think that's actually going to be the mantra pretty much for people. But not only that, people are going to realize, and it's going to take some changes. For example, coming out of that boss-employee relationship, there was an unconsciousness about that relationship. People just took, the way things were just because that's the way things were and they needed money. There was sort of an unconsciousness about it. So some people are going to have to go back to the drawing board and say, I really don't want to be treated that way, or I don't want to be in a job that is not using my gifts and talents and helping humanity and helping other people and bringing me a lot of gratitude and satisfaction, not only is that going to be at the forefront of where we're at, but people are going to realize that they're going to have to change some things in their own personal life. So if I want to make that change and find out what is my calling, what are my gifts, what are my talents, what do I really, really, really want to do? And that's not to say that no one's doing what they want to do. There are a lot of people doing what they want to do. But what we're going to have to do is change maybe some of our standards. So if we want to give up that big job that, we're making 100K plus a year, we might have to get rid of the house on the hill with a view over the ocean and that kind of thing, right? But I really, really believe that this current process we're going through is very, very healthy, because as well as I do, if you're around someone who's in a job they don't like, they're not fun to be around. They dread going to work in the morning. And one of the biggest signs that they don't really like their job is Friday night party time. Like people that seriously try and kill their brain cells because it's been such a bad week. And I suppose there's some people who love their job and still have these bad weeks and still will go out and get schnockered. But, you got to admit, when someone is just like, they can't wait till Friday gets there, and then Sunday becomes really like Sunday fun day, like really Borracho y Loco day, that's a sign. That's a sign. So unknowingly, we were doing this. We were in this mode. And I would even venture to say that, the 40 hours, do you ever wonder, why do we work 40 hours a week? This was actually something, and I love the fact that I was watching Bloomberg today, and I love, watching the Bloomberg podcast with Carol Masser and crew. And I had already written up my podcast notes for today. And lo and behold, they weren't on the same exact subject, but they were on a very interesting topic. And that's why I wanted to give them, some props, because they talked about the 40-hour work week, and I did a little research to confirm that they were right. Of course they're right. They're Bloomberg, right? But here's the thing. The 40-hour work week really did come from the Industrial Revolution. And this is a perfect example. And it was actually a good thing, because Henry Ford in 1926 learned that, or at least he made this proclamation with the company and whatnot, that, people are going to work no more than 40 hours, because he found that the productivity went down drastically. Because so people in the Industrial Revolution, once we realized we could have factories and have assembly lines and crank out goods and whatnot, they realized that, hey, there's a limit to what people can take. And we had to, make limits on how many hours a week you work, as well as, come on, this guy's 5 years old. He should be out playing, hit the can or whatever they played back then. Let's not, have these child labor situations. So there were some good things that were happening there. But here's the funny thing. And this is what kills me about the way we are in life. When there's something that's just sort of there, we just sort of take it for, okay, this is the way it is and the way it should be and the way it's always been. Like, why 40 hours a week? I mean, why do we work 40 hours a week? Well, my boss, he requires it because that was kind of the limit we put on it. Way back in 1926 was when this all went down. So, there are many people who work, 20 hours a week and have very fulfilling lives, and they have other hobbies that are also business related, like writing books and other things like that. So, but it's funny how we just do things, we just do things without asking questions. But see, this is what awakening and ascension's about. At some point, we got to stop and go, why 40 hours a week? Or why am I working, minimum wage at this place right here? Can I do better? Can I do something I like? Because what I have found is when people do something they like, what ends up happening is that they really turn on as far as talent and productivity. So we did it unknowingly. We just took things for the way they were. We were just business as usual, serving humanity in the way we felt it needed to be served. But now this awakening has brought us to this point of, what do I really want to do? Like I look at the United States of America, the world, the earth, you look at it like a pond, right? And if you take a rock and you throw it into a pond, you see these circles go out in all directions from that rock that you throw in the pond. Everything that we do, every action we have is like got an energetic resonance. And so what really needs to happen, and I believe that this is only a natural byproduct of awakening and ascension. What really needs to happen is we need to do the things that we were born to do. And I really believe if you're listening to this now and you're like, I really don't know what I was born to do. I mean, some of you already know. And the people who already know are shaking their heads like, yep, I know that. Either they are doing it or they're like, okay, I've got to start doing that, but I don't know how. That's okay. Two things. One, if you don't know what you were born to do, I really believe if you simply ask, you can ask the question internally, what was I born to do? And I guarantee you, the universe, God, friends, family, you will hear what you are supposed to do. I believe that will be made very, very clear to you because we need you. We need your talents and your gifts. And so that's going to come through. You're going to find out if you don't know. And when you start doing it, here's the amazing thing. When you start doing what you were born to do, there's nothing better than that. It's not even like the Confucius statement, like, well, you're not going to work a day. You're not only not going to work a day, you're going to be on an energetic high. You're going to feel propulsion behind you. You're going to feel like you're finally doing what you were born and meant to do. And you're going to have the satisfaction of seeing the fruition of your gifts and talents and the very thing that you were meant to do. And it's an amazing thing. You will hear the chiming in on multiple fronts from multiple people and even organizations, etc., that they are thankful. And people will literally, at times, I know it sounds crazy, but this is an illustration, so bear with me. People will actually bow down before you and gratitude, saying, thank you so much. When you are doing what you were meant to do, it creates a very reverential and sacred space around your work. And that is going to put wind into your sails. Well, so how do we break out of the mode of, what we've been doing to get into this new state of really bliss and success? And the success, by the way, outward, yeah, because I know that's one of your biggest concerns. If you're thinking about, how am I going to do? I know what I want to do. I want to do this or that. Make sure it's not just visions of grandeur. Check yourself on that. Make sure it's not just, I want to be famous doing this or that. I mean, that's okay to have beautiful, highfalutin visions, but make sure you don't get trapped in, the visions of grandeur scheme, because the little things bring just as much joy as the big things and the things that are easy to see. Because that joy and that peace and those internal gifts are just as rich for the person who knows that they were, they're totally content cleaning and they get great joy from being a janitor or, cleaning a house or whatever it is. That's fine. And they will bring great joy to the people that they're helping, assisting. But part of the way to break out of the mode of being what we're in, if we're not really enjoying it, is number one, to realize that you have those untapped gifts. And then not only realizing, as I said before, that those changes in life may be necessary to bridge you out of that life, that again, realizing that real wealth, number one, is always within. But you know what I found is when the people have discovered the real wealth internally from doing what they enjoy doing, that the external wealth, the majority of the time, follows. It really does follow. Because if you think of, and really all we really need is just enough to get by. Really that's all we need. If we think we really need a huge amount of cash, I would just have you consider a handful of very wealthy people. And you would find that even if you're wealthy, most people still struggle with the common ills of man. Even if you're wealthy, you can't buy peace. You can't go to your bank and make a deposit and then go in somewhere. I guess you could find a guru and say, look, I'm going to pay you here, give me Shaktipat or teach me how to find peace. I guess you could do that. And maybe even if you had a good guru or teacher or leader, you would find peace. And I know that's why a lot of people go to conferences and seminars and things like that. But really, when it comes down to it, you can actually buy the peace itself. So you can't buy the peace. And the mind itself, as active as it can be and as tormenting as it sometimes is no respecter of persons. It can torment the rich person alongside the poor person. So it doesn't, money won't buy, as the Beatles saying, money can't buy you love, and it certainly can't buy you peace. But these are, of course, things that come when we go through this ascension process, because not only do we realize that we should fulfill our life purpose, but we realize that peace is tantamount and we should be on the path of peace. There's an old ancient text that says, seek peace and pursue it, which really what that means, it means look for it and then run after it. So identify it, look for it, identify it, what is it, and then pursue it, go after it. So just a few thoughts about how this current state of change in our life is bringing about a change in perspective of work. I hope that as you sit back and think about, your life in the last 2 years and everything that's happened with the work from home, in some cases even lock down certain areas and travel restrictions and all that. I hope that not only peace becomes a priority, but figuring out what your gifts and talents are and pursuing them and doing it for the joy of them. And I'm thankful that you've stopped by for a brief chat, and I hope you subscribe to our YouTube channel and set your alerts. If you're on Facebook Live, please like the podcast and send me a message on chat. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Chris Anthony. This is Streams of Light Podcast, and we'll see you again next time.